This is a lecture on reference frames and 1D relative velocity. So the simple idea here is if I'm standing stationary on the ground, let's say that's me and I'm in frame A, and you are in frame B, which is a train, let's say, that's moving away from me at velocity 10 meters per second. And furthermore, if you are walking at 1 meter per second relative to the train, you're going to see um, velocities around you differently than I will. And so to formalize this discussion, we have a frame A of a person who, let's say, is stationary with respect to the Earth, WRT, with respect to the Earth, and a frame B, which is a moving train in this case. And let's say that the train has a velocity of 10 meter per second with respect to A. So this B/A means B with respect to A. And that a person P in the train has a velocity of P with respect to B of 1 meter per second. And so if I want to know what the person's velocity relative to A is, to me, that's going to be the sum of the person's velocity relative to their frame, in this case a train, plus the velocity of the train relative to A. That's me. A good thing to note about these two indices compared with this one is you take the subscript on the left, B over A, and you'll see that it's just like multiplying two fractions together. P over B times B over A is equal to P over A. So that's a good mnemonic for remembering how this works. So the velocity of the person relative to A, the person standing stationary over here, is going to be the person's velocity relative to the train, to the frame, B, 1 meter per second, plus the velocity of the frame, the train in other words, relative to A, which is 10 meters per second. In other words, the person's velocity relative to A is 11 meters per second. Now in B's reference frame, A has velocity minus 10 meters per second. And so if you just have somebody who's stationary in the train, from their standpoint, they're standing still and A is moving in a negative direction, negative velocity, minus 10 meters per second. And so the velocity of A relative to B is minus 10, which is the negative of the velocity of B relative to A, which was 10 meters per second, as we set up here. And that's a general rule. If you switch what relative to what, A relative to B and B relative to A, there's always a minus sign in between. That's true in general. So to take a last example here, we calculated the velocity of P relative to A. Let's calculate the velocity of A relative to P. Well, again, using this subscript rule, that's going to be the velocity of A relative to B plus the velocity of B relative to P. But using this negative rule, this is the same as minus B relative to A, and this is the same as minus P relative to B. And so this becomes minus 10. This becomes minus 1. And the velocity of A relative to P is minus 11 meters per second, which of course is also consistent with this negation rule when you switch what relative to what.